All right, good afternoon. So I'm going to be sharing our experience with building a fire program in the Northeast U.S. We've talked a lot today about all the challenges, whether it be urban interface or lack of training and weather and all that, and our experience with overcoming some of those challenges. It's certainly not the holy grail of how to build a program, but I think it's been a successful initiative for us, and it's certainly something that I'm really proud of being a part of. So, just a little bit of the story right there on the first slide, from where we came from with using fire at a fairly small extent in the agency, probably going back to the 1970s, possibly before then. We had guys out burning fields just to maintain fields, promote some diversity, and all that, but with really no training. And I've heard some horror stories of days in the past of guys going out and just lighting the field and hoping it stays out of the woods. So, but no equipment, very little training, and through some things that happened along the way here since really 2009. Picture on the right kind of tells our story. Outline of the presentation, talk briefly about the Game Commission, who we are, what we do. We touched on the legislation already today. I'll just briefly touch on that because that was a big component of building our program here in Pennsylvania. Some key components for us that came together, where we're at now, and where we're headed. So the Pennsylvania Game Commission manages 1.5 million acres across the state in our game land system. We also have access to 2.3 million acres in our hunter access program. So that's private landowners can enroll their property in the hunter access program, open it up to hunting, and in turn they can receive habitat management, law enforcement assistance, things like that from the Game Commission. So just a way to take advantage of the large private land holding that we have in Pennsylvania. I think about 2/3 of the state is privately owned. So we definitely have an interest in managing that. So we have a whole system set up to give public access and then also to allow us to do some more management. Our mission is to manage wild birds, wild mammals, and their habitats for current and future generations. Of course, we have the mandate to manage for wildlife conservation and hunting opportunity. Why we burn, probably common sense for most people in the room, but we're looking to manage for a whole host of things, a whole host of wildlife species, and provide that quality hunting opportunity. And right there at the top of the list, promote healthy oak forests. We have hundreds of thousands of acres of oak ecosystems within our game lands system. So I mentioned burning prior to legislation. These are just some figures from 2006 to 2009. Of course, at the time of the Prescribed Fire Practices Act was passed. We've burned prior to this, but just kind of gives you a snapshot of where we were at prior to legislation and where things really started to turn the corner for us. So 700 acres, 400 acres, 300 acres, 700 acres. So everything's sub 1,000 acres. Some of the largest burn numbers there per single burn, averaging right around a little over 100 acres. Legislation passed in 2009, House Bill 262. Ben talked about this morning. But it really was big and a key component to moving our program in particular forward, just to be able to provide our burn bosses with liability coverage. Along with the House bill, we had passage of our state prescribed fire standards. So we had burn plan requirements, we had a burn plan review process, burn boss credentials, training standards, all which really mimic NWCG. There's a couple minor tweaks, but it's a pretty rigorous training standard for anybody who wants to be covered by the legislation. You can see on the right there, that's our qualification standards, all the training required. We do have minimum number of operational periods here. in Pennsylvania, which is something that's a little bit different than NWCG, but nonetheless very, very rigorous. There was a grandfathering process that was put in place, so anybody that had documented prior experience, we could grandfather some of those folks into a burn boss position or firing boss position. I think the Game Commission grandfathered roughly 20 people or so. A lot of those folks are actually retired at this point now. So because of all this training, we were going to have a very rigorous training schedule put in place to get our people up to speed if we really wanted to make this happen, make it a reality for us. We had a goal early on of having 14 certified burn bosses. Just the number that was thrown out there, not sure where exactly that came from, but our agency is divided into 6 regions, so I assume just having the capacity for 2 burn bosses in each region, and then a couple maybe central to Harrisburg that would float around to help out. And substantial investment we were going to have to undertake in PPE and equipment. We had no Type 6 engines, no UTVs or anything like that as we were coming into this ramp-up phase. So how are we going to figure all this out? So the key pieces that all came together to make this happen, we had drive and support within the agency. Drive, so Ben Jones was a key part of driving this whole initiative that, we need prescribed fire for habitat management. We're going to need to get all this training in place, get equipment, secure funding. But then also important was having that support from our executive office, upper levels of management to say, yeah, this is a great idea. You got our full support. Do what you need to do to make it happen. And then to allocate funding from our budget. So our fire program is funded through Pittman-Robertson grant monies from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So that's a tax on the sale of firearms and ammunition. So we're fortunate enough to be able to have that funding in place to be able to provide training and buy all of our equipment and pay a lot of our staff time. So that's really crucial for us. We're not dipping into our game fund monies. And as the Game Commission, we don't take a budget from the state appropriations. So we work off of our own funding and then also Pittman-Robertson funding. And then as far as how in the heck are we going to start getting some fire on the ground, get experience, get training. We of course didn't have anybody in-house to go to start doing this. So hey, let's look for some people that do have that experience with training and implementation. We engaged in a partnership with the Nature Conservancy here in Pennsylvania. Pat McElhaney and Jenny Case got a contract with them, and they started making it happen for us. So like hundreds of hours of training. We were just really hammering through that the first couple years. Started to do some implementation on some TNC properties up in the northeast part of the state where the TNC was based out of. They started expanding out, coming to Scotia for some burns, and we were bringing people from all over the state early on. So it was Nature Conservancy, it was Delaware Water Gap National Park Service, Fort Indian Town Gap. We had people just coming in from all of our regions to get experience at some of these early burns. And that was all, of course, just to try to build that capacity, build the experience, get everybody some exposure to fire, and hopefully be able to take that back to their home regions. So along with this came, the need to try to establish that fire has been a part of the Pennsylvania landscape for a long time. We got engaged with University of Missouri, Mike Stanball and Joe Marshall, and came up with a fire history study. Chose a couple sites throughout Pennsylvania, game lands, and really wanted to try to establish that fire history here. And found cool stuff like this. This is from Game Lands 88, which is in Perry County, just outside Harrisburg. So if you think back to a couple of the presentations today showing the some of the population distribution of Pennsylvania, this is right outside one of those pretty populated areas. And you may be able to see on here, we've got a couple instances of annual fire here. So, I mean, among other things, it just provided proof that we had a long fire history in Pennsylvania, especially on a couple of these sites, and not too far outside of populated centers. So that site was out of that Ridge and Valley region. So kind of fast forwarding through years of training and experience and really ramping things up across the state and working with partners, here's where we're at now. We have about 270 habitat management staff out there, so that includes our foresters, land managers, food and cover maintenance crews. Of that 270, we have about 215 that are qualified now to participate on burns. And I should mention too that we require everyone to pass a PAC test. So they have to at least do the moderate level test to be able to get out on a burn. If they want to do internal ignitions, they have to do the arduous PAC test. So that's something our agency thought was important to provide for safety. So everybody got engaged with that. 215 qualified people, 127 firefighter 2s, 49 firefighter 1s, 20 firing bosses, and 11 RXB 3s, 6 RXB 2s, and 2 RXB 1s. So pretty impressive growth there since 2009. And again, most of the people that were grandfathered are now retired. So these are largely folks that started out probably not knowing anything about fire at the time, and working the whole way up through to, in some cases, being a RXB2 and an RXB1. I'm the only full-time fire position in the agency. So I work out of our headquarters office and cover the entire state. So that means all of our fire is getting done by folks that are taking this as another duty as assigned type of thing. So it's foresters that are marking timber on a daily basis. It's land managers that are dealing with a whole host of things, from right-of-way stuff to managing their crews, and the crews doing everything from putting food plots in to marking boundary and maintaining roads and bridges. That's an important piece of this. Prior to fire, that's all they were doing. And then we come along and say, hey, we need to start burning, and we need to start burning a lot if we really want to have a quality impact on things. So how does that fit in? That was a big struggle for us to really make fire a priority, and we're still working on that in a lot of cases. But man, we've really come a long ways, and it's just a matter of, hey, we need to prioritize fire now, and so other stuff's gonna have to kind of get shifted around. Maybe we don't do as much mowing. Maybe we need to work on certain projects at different times of the year. Fire only comes to us really at 3 months. Can really get after it. So it's just a matter of shifting things around. A lot easier said than done. It took several years and kind of a progressive approach to really bring fire to the forefront and prioritize that. But I think we're in a great place now. So we do have 19 burn bosses, but in some regions we don't have any burn bosses, or we don't have any RXB2s to be able to burn woods. So in trying to continue to build our capacity and promote people up through from RXB3 or from whatever, to try to get RXB2s in every region to maximize our days, we're actually contracting with WRI, Wildland Restoration International, Bob Bales here, and Smoke Goose Consulting. So we have 2 contractors that we're working with. We actually brought in 3 burn bosses last year, one to staff our Northeast region, one to staff our Northwest region, and one in the Southwest. And those guys are on from April 1st to May 24th, I think was the schedule this year. So the bulk of our spring fire season, we had those contractors here. they're searching for those burn days, and they're available to burn any chance that we get weather-wise. And the last 2 years, unfortunately, it didn't really work out that well, but that's the chance we take. There's no telling how the spring's going to go as far as being wet or dry. But we got a lot of great stuff done, even though the acres numbers weren't that great. We were still able to get a lot of good training done, and did put some fire on the ground. Here's our trend. Ben had this graph up earlier. The important thing is to see that progression. Aside from those numbers, it's that growth in the program. So obviously we're doing something right. Acres by month, it just shows you that we're trying to burn any chance we can, not just during the core March to May window. We still haven't hit January yet, but every other month we've put fire on the ground in some fashion. Showing you a split of our acres based on our general habitat types. So dry oak and pine, we're going to look at a lot of that stuff tomorrow on the field visit to 33 in particular. That's a lot of our land base, and so it kind of makes sense that that's what we're doing a lot of our burning in. So we had this major ramp up phase with acres, but we were getting some unintended results. So you may be able to see here in the picture just two examples of some burns. We overachieved the intended objectives, killed a bunch of timber. Here's another one, before and after shot. Now, habitat value in the end, you might look at it and say, hey, that's great for diversifying that habitat structure, but that wasn't the intended result. We had quality oak timber in there. So now we're kind of retooling and revamping, trying some mowing. We'll look at some of that tomorrow. We're not sure if this is a solution or not, but it's a step that we're trying out here to try to mitigate fire intensity, to try to save some of our oak and pine that we've been killing in situations that we haven't mowed in. So this is something we're just diving into now. I think the Bureau of Forestry mentioned this tactic as well. But please come up and share your experiences with me, or if you run into any of our guys out there, let us know if you've tried this, if anything's worked for you. Aside just from the mowing, we're not sure if there needs to be a certain type of mower headed that's going to give us a better result or not. But again, trying to expand our burn window. We're also exploring a new concept of fuels-driven burning, working with Bob Bale on this concept. Can we identify hot fuels, cold fuels, fuels in between, maybe based on topography as well, and be able to jump into the hot fuels 1 or 2 days after rain, realizing that other fuels aren't available to burn? Can we split up crews within a game lands block and go hit all the red blocks and just be fine, letting it creep out into those yellow fuels, and fully realizing blue is definitely out of the picture. So in seasons like we've had this past year, and actually last year we had another wet season, I think we're going to have to search for other ways to really keep things going. Instead of taking the traditional approach of let's wait till the entire unit's available and then we'll go out and burn the entire unit. Can we kind of hopscotch around and piece things together and do some fuels management and get some more fire on the ground that way? Challenges that are ongoing for us: looking to get more burn bosses, looking to expand onto private lands. So within our hunter access properties, trying to get more on the ground there, trying to ensure that we take advantage and do re-entry on units. You hear so much about how important it is for multiple entries on a single unit to get your results. This isn't a once and done thing. So trying to prioritize frequent fire, multiple entries versus getting first entries all over the place. We do have an aerial program. We usually try to hit a couple units a year. Didn't get to anything this past year, but that's in the cards. Maybe look at drones in the future to expand what we're doing, both with ignition or at least just having that aerial platform up. Trex events, great presentation by Helen. We are looking at sending people to Trex events. We're hoping to send somebody to California as a burn boss trainee this fall. and hopefully gets maybe at least one person to every Trex event here going forward. Trying to invest more in our people now. And then monitoring, trying to grow that monitoring program out a little bit more from what we're doing, just to make sure we're on the right track with our restoration work. Again, keys to success, partnership with TNC. We had that funding in place to provide for the training, equipment, and implementation. Support from all program levels, strategic plans, comp plans, and that the whole way up to executive director. Centralized program admin has helped us, just kind of having the centralized management and program structure, and then getting the buy-in from all the folks out in the field. And gradually increasing our burn unit size with comfort, starting small and growing it out bigger. And we're hoping to work more with the Bureau of Forestry here going forward. We've got a couple cooperative projects in play, some more that's being discussed down the road. A lot of what we're doing now is on our own, and we're looking to grow that out. Bureau of Forestry, TNC, state parks, Indiantown Gap, try to build those partnerships. That's my info if you want to contact me. So that's it.